Hello everyone, my name is David Cowan and I'm a research fellow in history. I work mostly on 20th century Britain, and for my postdoctoral research I'm working on a cultural history of the rich in modern Britain. But this will mean one that's less interested in trying to count the rich or to learn a lot about their lifestyles. I'm more interested in what wider society has felt about rich people and about the existence of economic inequality. As in the present, though for very different reasons, in the Second World War there were concerns and quite prominent discussions about movement of people in and out of Britain. And I want to say a bit about Gracie Fields, who faced a scandal surrounding her mobility and crucially her money in 1940. But to begin, I'll need to explain a little about who Fields was. And whereas speaking in 1940, I wouldn't need to do this, and that's sort of the point. She was one of the most popular celebrities in Britain of the 1930s. She came from humble origins. She was a versatile musical performer, and she initially made her name on the music hall stage before moving into the cinema. She was phenomenally popular, but she'd also become phenomenally rich. In today's money, she's earning millions of pounds for appearing in films. Now, once the war was declared, she sought, as she put it, to do her bit through her music. She embarked on a tour of concerts to entertain members of the armed services, and through broadcasting some of them she hoped to keep up the spirits of the whole country and to raise money for good causes. Reading through some of the letters that the public sent to Fields following this broadcast on Christmas Eve from France, it's hard not to be struck by people's reflections on her generosity in doing so. One male donor wrote that "I hope Miss Fields' appeal realised a record sum. She deserves a good response as she is so self-sacrificing. May she be long spared to carry on the good work she does." She was giving up her time at a time of year when many of the letter writers were spending time with their families. She was threatening her health by performing shortly after a hospital visit when she really needed to recuperate, and she was travelling to continental Europe early on in the war, broadcasting to people tucked up in their homes. She was brave, kind and altruistic, regarded not only as a brilliant performer, but as someone who, through these performances, cared for others, using her talents to put the troops and the people of Britain before herself. But all this changed. At the end of May 1940, she left Britain behind, sailing from Liverpool to Montreal with her new husband, Monty Banks. The departure was reported almost immediately, and doubts quickly mounted about the circumstances of the voyage. Questions about why she'd been allowed to leave, and about the amount of money and jewellery that she'd been alleged to have taken, were raised in Parliament. By then there were tight restrictions on currency withdrawals in wartime. She claimed that she'd acted with government approval, and that she was abroad doing essential work raising money for the war effort through concerts in North America, that she was using her talents still to support Britain at a moment of national crisis. But many newspapers distrusted her account. It was widely suspected that she had other less altruistic reasons for leaving connected to her husband. As an Italian, he was liable to be interned in Britain. Now, the bare bones of this story are pretty well known, so I focused most of my work on trying to get the public response to her actions. And when we look at contemporary letters and interviews with members of the public, it's striking that a number of people, despite her popularity, questioned her altruism, arguing that since she could have easily continued to work performing concerts in Britain, there were probably ulterior motives for her departure. Partly, these were concerns about her getting out of harm's way, of choosing to work in fairly safe climes abroad, a choice that was denied to most people who remained on the home front, who faced the threats of invasion and later the Blitz. For one man, he said, "I think the whole thing has shown her up as just what she is, a money-making egoist." So there's a denial here that her primary interest was in selflessly working for her public. To these people, she now appeared to be placing her own personal or financial interests ahead of her obligations to her fans. And there were another set of concerns about the double standards that appeared to be operating. One young man explained that he wanted to send £5 to my nephew out there, but they wouldn't let me. And limits on posting money abroad were in force. but it appeared that Fields was someone for whom such restrictions didn't count. And more importantly, still perhaps, these were restrictions that were vital to the war effort. As one woman said, we'd be in a hole if everybody started taking their money out of the country, especially if they were all as rich as her. But Fields also had her defenders. Some agreed that she was doing work for the war effort. It didn't matter whether she was in Britain or abroad. One man in his 50s said that she's doing valuable work in the USA raising money for us. He was confident that the government had made an exception of her about the money because she needed it for the work she was doing on their behalf. There's also a sense that almost irrespective of her plans abroad, she'd earned the right to leave Britain by virtue of her experiences and her good nature. A woman commented, even if she took every penny out of the country, well, look at the good she did in peacetime. It's time some of the others did their share. Now she's done her bit. So this is a fairly mixed picture, in fact, of public responses to this scandal. I think it's a real moment of uncertainty about the obligations of public figures to their audiences, particularly when money's involved, and particularly at a moment like the war of national crisis. In the next stage of my research, I'm hoping to push this approach back forwards and backwards in time. For now, I just thank you very much for listening.